Good afternoon, and welcome to Expose Yourself to Art, a show that looks into the creative process by asking artists of various genres to come on our show and chat with us about their life and their work. My name is David Schrader, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Linda Scheller. Hi, Linda.
Hi, David.
So how are you doing with the heat? Is it
I'm
bad
all right.
out there? You're all right?
Well, yeah, it is outdoors, but I'm in the house. It feels good.
So your air conditioning is working, and
Thank goodness.
and all of your animals are okay?
Yes, they're fine.
Really?
Yeah, I bring the dogs in. I mean, they seem willing enough to just flop out on the floor in here where it's cool. So,
What about your donkeys?
well, they have a shade structure,
Oh,
so they're
okay.
fine.
So everybody's fine. Wonderful. Okay. Well, we have a great show today, a great, very interesting person. But before we get to that, what's going on in our community? Uh, you must know something. You're
Well, I've
looking it
got
up.
one here.
Okay.
Celebrating 21 years of Prospect Theater Project on Sunday, June 27th. Come on down and get a delicious dinner prepared by Paul Tremaine of Conchettas, or go on in and enjoy a signature cocktail by Lo-Fi. There will even be live music inside the theater, so please come on down, stop in, listen to the music, and meet the new executive director, Sarah Smith Aronson, and see the beautiful improvements that they have made to the studio. So that's next Sunday, 4 to 7 p.m.
I'll be there, and it's more than just a drive-through, correct? You
That
could
is
go
right. You
inside,
can go
talk to people.
inside and hear music by Tequila Mockingbird from 4 to 5, Lisette and Company from 5:10 to 6, from 6:10 to 7, Patty Castillo Davis, Kevin Zoffi, and Joe Beretta, and 7:10 to 8 o'clock, U.S. for Love.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah,
will be there. Yes,
good.
I
Me
will.
too.
You're going to be there? Great. I'll see you there.
Great.
So anyway, to get on with this program, we have a wonderful person today, Melanie Wyatt, and our paths have crossed for many years in the theater, in and around Modesto and surrounding areas. So let me just say a few words about her. Melanie is a native Modestan. She is an alumni of the Modesto Junior College and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of the Pacific on a full tuition drama scholarship. She started her theatrical career at the ripe old age of 1.5 years as a teddy bear in a Christmas musical. Since the age of 8, she has worked professionally as an actress, singer, dancer, and model, resulting with residency in New York City and representation with the prestigious Ford Modeling Agency. Having modeled internationally, Melanie has also graced the cover of the national magazine, BBW, twice. She has made several television appearances, including CBS, the morning program, Attitudes, Our Magazine, and CNN, regarding fitness and self-esteem for the larger woman. Wow. Having returned to her hometown Modesto, following some problems with her back in the mid-1980s, she began work as a professional assistant to the executive producer of California Musical Theater. Thankfully, when that program concluded, she was presented with the opportunity to create a program in the theater arts for youth through the Stanislaus County Office of Education. The name of the program is YES, Y-E-S, Youth Entertainment Stage Company. So with that, let's take a look at one of the videos that was made about the YES Company before we bring Melanie on. So can we cue that up? There it is.
This looks as professional as a Broadway tour of Mary Poppins, playing in front of a packed audience at the Gallo Center for the Arts in Modesto. But these aren't professionals. They're school children from all across Stanislaus County. coming together in harmony and providing some powerful lessons.
The arts are amazing because there's so many things that a young person can learn. They learn about being responsible, about teamwork, about working together, problem solving, leadership, and it's all through the performing arts.
Melanie Wyatt is the founder and director of Yes Company. It began in 1992 as a program for at-risk kids during the summer, but it quickly blossomed into a beloved county-wide program encompassing students of all socioeconomic backgrounds. From elementary through high school, students participate in Yes Company theater performances backed by the Stanislaus County Office of Education.
It's so important to keep the arts in the schools and in education because sometimes that's the only place a young person will shine. And they find a place for themselves in the educational system. And unfortunately, funding is cut and cut and cut. And my premise is the arts survive when a civilization dies.
Yes Company really is special. They're one of our resident companies, and they're the only one that is geared entirely to youth. I bring in acts from all over the country, all over the world, really. You will never be disappointed in the quality of a Yes Company show. It is spectacular, really and truly. It's just the costuming, the choreography, the sets. It's like a touring Broadway show, really and truly. They are very, very good at what they do.
Melanie spends the year auditioning, selecting, and rehearsing with students. This group is practicing for the summer performance of Beauty and the Beast. Melanie herself once had her eye on the stage, moving to Manhattan and landing a major modeling contract, becoming the first international plus-size model while auditioning for Broadway shows. But a back injury forced her to put her acting dreams on hold.
I came home for a 1-week vacation to Modesto, where I was born and raised, and I never made it back to New York City. And I took that as, your back is your support system, and maybe it was just a little too hard. I wasn't being really supported.
Former County Superintendent Martin Peterson heard a star student was back in town and asked her to come up with an idea on how to bring performing arts to students in Stanislaus County.
I wanted to start with a positive acronym, so that's why it is called Yes Company, Youth Entertainment Stage Company, because in acting and everything, you need to say yes. You need to say yes, and amazing things come to you through that.
Several of her students perform in Broadway touring shows now. She's got opera stars and Broadway stars and all sorts of amazing, talent out there that Melanie cultivated with this Yes Company program.
Talent like Aaron Raby, who says the Yes Company opened the door to his future in more ways than one.
Melanie has been not only a role model, but a caring adult and a mother to everyone who's come through the program. My parents divorced at a very young age, and to be able to go through the program and have an adult care for you genuinely, she definitely filled an emotional void in my life that, when you're in your formative years, that you need, and sets the foundation for relationships that you have later.
Aaron was in Yes Company in high school, on stage playing the lead role in West Side Story, offstage finding the love of his life, Natalie, who sang in the musical Grease. He credits the Yes Company for their 5th grade daughter's confidence inside and outside the classroom.
Her public speaking ability and the way she can come across, and even her ability to make friends and put herself out there, there's all correlations to what she's learning here.
After 27 years, Yes Company is changing.
We gratefully have been supported through the Stanislaus County Office of Education. But times change, funding sources change, priorities change of what's important or what needs focus. The program has grown so that I've been told it's pretty much unsustainable right now. And I understand that.
The County Office of Education says Yes Company will continue in some capacity. In the meantime, Melanie plans to retire, but hopes to continue working with students in the performing arts because she still draws inspiration from students like David.
I've been at Yes Company for about a decade now, I wouldn't say it's enriched me so much as I would say that it's made me. Yes Company has been an absolutely defining part of my life. I don't know who I would be if I wasn't part of Yes Company.
I have high expectations because they always rise to those expectations. A lot of times people second guess children and look down on them, and they're absolutely amazing. They're amazing what they can achieve.
Yes!
Well, Melanie used the word amazing, and that's the word I would use to describe her. She is an amazing person and has developed some amazing programs. So let's bring her on and share her with the people who are watching. Come on in here, Melanie. Hi.
Hello, thank
There
you
you
so
are.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing those beautiful children and a wonderful program, which is continuing. It is a partnership's been developed with the Stanislaus County Office of Education and the Gallo Center for the Arts. And they did a bit of restructuring, and they do the summer program, the summer musical. And they also have some classes through, I think it's called the Gallo Center Youth Academy. So it's different, yet it's still offering children experiences in the performing arts.
Wonderful.
Well, I'd like to know more about how you got into theater. 1.5 years old. Did you have a really artistic family?
Well, I'll tell you, I often wonder, Linda, if I would have chosen performing arts, because I started, like you said, at 1.5. I was carried around by the Queen of Toyland. I was a teddy bear, and I was on the stage for 45 minutes, I guess. So that's pretty good. It was in a musical that my mother had written. It's called Susie's Christmas Eve Dream. And how it initially began, my father ran Collins Electric many years ago, and they used to have a big holiday gathering, and she would use some of her dance students and the children that from the all the electricians that worked there, and they would do this production, and that's how it began. And then later on it blossomed where she would do it as a fundraiser for like the March of Dimes or whatever. And but that was the first time I was ever on stage. The first time I ever danced or performed by myself, I was 3. I was a little I don't know, you remember those little powder boxes that had little ballerinas on them? She put me on a powder box, and I danced with Santa at 3. And then after that, 4 or 5 years old, I was performing all over the community for every club and, every kind of celebration that people had. And one time years later, I was driven up to a one-room schoolhouse to perform for a young man who was the only graduating student, So I remember being on tabletops at meetings, those big tables, and performing, because I was little then. It's hard to believe when I look at the pictures that I was once that small. And and Mom, she had performed when she was very young. She came from a pretty different, she was one of the first latchkey kids. And the story, I don't know, it's interesting how she began. Her mother worked full time, and there was some sort of a talent show or something at a movie theater, and her mom had told her not to go, but the first prize was a beaver coat, and she wanted to win that for for her mother. And this was probably the mid to late 1920s. And so she went, and of course she made her own costume out of newspaper and all that, and she didn't win. But one of the judges was a dance teacher, and the dance teacher said, I'd love to, she saw potential in her, and she said, I'd love to teach you dance. And she says, well, I can't afford it. My mom. And this dance teacher gave her free dance lessons, for many, many years. And that's kind of how that began. And she got into her early teens performing and dancing with this instructor. And I think that had a lot to do with how she became a dance instructor eventually. Her mama passed when she was 16, and because her parents had divorced in the early 1920s, and that wasn't the thing to do. But her daddy was here in California, and so at 16 or 17, she came to California, and she was told, okay, you can participate in all the arts, because he was living in San Francisco at the time. But then he had moved to Modesto in the meantime, which in the 1930s wasn't exactly a thriving metropolis. So that's what brought her to Modesto. And my grandfather was, well, the business is still in existence. I don't have any ties to it. My mom didn't, but Hart Floral. H-A-R-T, that was my mom's maiden name, and her father was the person who began all that. So and her father used to sing with her mother too. So I think it comes from many years of generations and the arts in some way involved.
Oh,
Yes.
that's marvelous. And you went to Downey High School?
No. I went to Fremont Elementary.
Okay.
Before it was an open plan, and then Roosevelt Junior High, and then Davis High School.
Davis, okay.
Yes, and then I went to JC, and I tried to go to San Francisco State twice, but it was not the place for me. At that time, I was looking into becoming a dance therapist. And in those days, they didn't have a major for that. I would have had to create my own. But then one of my dearest friends was Robert Ulrich, was at UOP. And he told me that the student who did a lot of the choreography and such at UOP was graduating. So I went and applied to UOP, but it was mid-semester, and they were very kind and very interested. But they said, it's mid-semester, all the money's, there's no way I could have gone to UOP, because at that time it cost as much as my mother was making in a year, working. So, and my dad had passed away when I was 14. So, we were pretty much on our own. And but then a few days later, they called, and they had found funding, and they invited me to become a student at full-time, full scholarship, which was very, very lovely. And that was a wonderful experience. Of course, I wanted to live the college experience as well. So I got to live in a dorm, and I went in a sorority, but, I was never too rah-rah. Drama departments always were the ones with the coffee mug and the cigarette, right? And then, then there was the rah-rah sorority. So it was a nice balance for me. I wasn't too much on either side. And of course, I was the only girl in my sorority that knew how much my rent was. Everyone else, had parents that were had enough money to pay for it without any kind of a thought. But of course, the emotional support from my family, I always had. And so I graduated from UOP as well.
Wow.
After that.
So I think we have pictures that kind of go along with this history,
Yes.
starting with you at a very, very young age. So maybe we can bring those on and
I'll comment on them.
Yeah, give some visuals
Okay.
to your stories. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, there was a young dance teacher in our community, and she decided to write a book. And she used me as a model. And remember, this was the 60s. So, black and white, and printing of things was different. And you can't see in that book, but she would add her own artistic, she would paint the costumes on me, or something that had to do with whatever the storyline was. And that was lovely. That was a wonderful experience.
So there.
And there I am. That's my mommy's dance studio. I grew up on College Avenue, and we were in that, my mom was in that home for 50 years. And I never missed a Christmas no matter where I lived, Los Angeles, New York, Vermont, whatever. I was home for the first 50 years of my life to spend Christmas. And that dance studio my father built for my mom, because when she first started, teaching, she taught in our living room and dining room. And so that studio became very special to lots of people. As I grew older, we had parties there, and I also taught there for a while. And yeah, so lots of memories in that room. And my mom was very good at teaching flexibility, as you can see. Boy, I wish I could do that now.
Yeah.
And there she is. There's my precious mama. That particular photo is from a time when we would sing together. There was so many of these things people have no idea what it is because it was so long ago, but there was a talent show called the Ben Alexander Show on television, and my mom and I went on it, and we won, which was nice, but a child could not go on it by themselves. So my mom went on with me, and we sang in my sweet little Alice blue gown together, and it's a lovely memory. And you can see my hair there. There I am. Mom used to, scissors didn't touch my hair until I was like in 6th or 7th grade. And she cut bangs for me that were the most embarrassing thing. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But when I was little, she pin curled my hair every night.
Wow.
And then brushed it out. Yeah.
So this is the blue gown of the song, right?
Yes, this is my sweet little Alice blue gown, dotted Swiss fabric with a little hoop skirt. Yes, it is.
Okay. So.
And then this photo is one of my headshots. It's so different now. A lot of times headshots and everything are done online, but it was a whole nother process when in the 70s and 80s to get your headshots done. And these photos were from when I was living in New York City. And it's kind of fun because the gentleman's studio was in Carnegie Hall. And so anyway, you take different looks and all that kind of stuff so you can send it out to people, and hopefully somebody needs your look or likes your look. It's a pretty tough business. But I moved to New York City with $200 to my name because I didn't want to be my age now and say I should have, I could have, I would have. And so I moved in, and it's fascinating. Within a week, I had met up with 4 or 5 other people that were from the Modesto area or had done Modesto Youth Theater. And I ended up rooming while I was there with Greg Elson, who is from the Modesto area. And his parents owned, these things I'm talking about are for old timers, the Happy House in McHenry Village. And he participated in Modesto Youth Theater with me. And so we had some wonderful times in New York City. Pursuing a theatrical career. I was just getting to the point where I could go to auditions. I was working 4 jobs in order to survive, of course. And I worked for an ophthalmologist. I worked at a beautiful boutique with plus sizes for women. And then I also taught in people's homes, fitness for the larger woman. And I also taught dance for little ones in a studio. And I created a business called The Positive Image. And I rented a studio on the Upper West Side and taught exercise to women who don't, at that time, it wasn't accessible. I mean, you couldn't, in the 80s, plus size was just developing. And I guess you could say I was in the groundbreaking,
Yeah.
interesting choice of words, but the groundbreaking.
You got in on the ground floor. There you go.
Yeah, ground floor of
There you
plus size interests and modeling, and that's when I think the next couple of pictures you can see I was flown to Germany. This was before I moved to New York. I was out of college in Modesto, and Neckerman, which is the business that hired me, was in Los Angeles, and they had seen my cover from Big Beautiful Woman, and they said, "This is a girl we want. Let's hire her." And so somebody went on a search for me. I was working at Bank of America at the time, and within a week I was flown to Germany and had this amazing experience. And then I stopped in New York on the way back, and they I visited Robert and Kim Ulrich, who were living there then, and the three of us went to Ford Modeling Agency. And I remember them sitting down in the steps, and they let me went in, and I talked to an agent there, and who said, when you come to New York, please get in contact with us. And I did many years later after this particular experience. So.
Wow. So this is, it's kind of a somewhat traditional story. It's like if you're going to make it in showbiz, you go to New York.
Yes.
And you have these experiences you had. It's almost like it's magic. How were you discovered, or did you audition a lot?
Oh.
What's this like?
Yeah. I don't really think I was ever really discovered, but I did a lot. I have a lot of wonderful experiences and working with a lot of things. I think, one of the things, if you go to the next couple of pictures, you can see the BBW. That's what introduced me into the plus size modeling, and that it was totally new, and I was truly a plus size model. In New York, a regular model was like 0 or a 6 or something. So plus size was like a 12 to 14, which is what the average American woman is. And I was a little larger than a 12 to 14, so I truly was the plus size model. And that was wonderful to be able to do that. So that's what got me into the modeling. The performing, as I said, I started at such an early age. And my first professional show, I auditioned when I was, I think I was 7 or 8. And Music Circus, which is in Sacramento, which is one of the oldest running theaters in the round. It's now called California Musical Theater, and then Music Circus is a part of that. And they came through to the Modesto JC to audition. They were doing a nationwide audition and search for. It was the first time Sound of Music was being produced. From Broadway, like they had already done it on Broadway. It had the Broadway tour. And then this was the first production done by another professional company. And of course, my mother, who was very good, she wasn't good at promoting herself, but boy, she could promote, her children and things like that. So they were only auditioning adults, and she got me in there. And I ended up, they called me back to the audition in Sacramento. And so I ended up being cast as Brigitte. I was 8 years old, and so I did that production. That was my first professional production in Sacramento, doing the musicals. And then I just grew up doing that. My mom, I was with a modeling agency when I was a little girl, Gourmet Modeling Agency. I had auditioned for films or whatever. And, one story that really sticks in my mind is that I had auditioned for something, I think my mom, we had driven for hours to get to the audition, and then I don't know how the audition went. And my mother tells me the story that she says, I was looking out the window very forlornly and saying, will they ever want me, Mama? And when I said that to her, that really affected her. And she and my dad decided that they wanted me to have a regular life and remain in Modesto and go through school, and then make the decision when I got older if I was going to pursue it or not. And, performing arts, there's so much to it. The way I was raised, it wasn't for my glorification ever. My mom would say, "Now remember, honey, God performs, and you reflect that, and that you're there. You can help people forget their troubles. You're there to entertain people, make them happy, let them forget about their daily troubles in life." And I think one of the most wonderful memories that I have is, remember I said I performed all over when I was a little girl. Well, Modesto at one point it was first a military hospital, and then they had a state hospital here. And they had residents in the state hospital, mental hospital. And at Christmas time, I was always performing. And so I remember going from, I don't know what they're called, but from ward to ward, singing holiday songs. And I must have been like 6 or something like that. And there was one of the patients there came up and was talking to me. And I guess my mother told me that one of the employees there came up to my mom, and she was crying. And she said that person had never spoken since the time she had been there. So to me, that just shows, that the arts can touch when nothing else can. Sometimes there was something about me being there and performing for her that brought her back, in essence. It's just magical.
That's a beautiful story.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I feel very fortunate.
We've given a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Well, it's how I was raised, and
Right.
that's why I say I don't know what I would have chosen.
Right. After coming from that background, the only thing that was missing is you weren't born on stage.
That's right. I wasn't born in a trunk, right?
Spoken like a true
Wasn't there
man.
that song, "I'm born in a trunk"?
Oh, wow.
But close to it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
But
right.
I've had
What
just
else would
wonderful-
you have done? It's like,
Right.
yes.
I remember one time, I remember in the recesses of my mind when I was wanting to be a translator at the United Nations. So I don't know where that came from, but anyway, that's the only thing I ever thought of that other than the performing arts, and it's been wonderful because, after living in New York, I've pursued a career all throughout California, New York, and, I came home for a week vacation, and I had incurred a back injury when I was in New York City, and they misdiagnosed it. So it was worse than it was. So, and I talked a little bit about that in that video. And so I found myself back in Modesto. And so it was a time to restructure what I wanted out of life, what I wanted to do, and heal. And, fortunately, fortunately, the universe provided me with all kinds of opportunities that, ultimately led me to, creating Yes Company. Growing up, like since 1969, it's been over 90 productions that I've helped either choreographed or directed or, helped in or something like that. The performing took a back seat, and what became my life's work was working with young people and sharing all the things that I learned and passing it on to them. And that's when in 1992, Martin Peterson, he was the superintendent then, contacted me, and he said, I want to do something for kids in the arts. I want to keep them busy, off the streets, out of trouble. And so he gave me, and the County Office of Education gave me the freedom to create Yes Company. I was able to create the goals and the not only the goals, but the objectives, the program itself. I got to create the name, Yes Youth Entertainment Stage Company, because I wanted to start with a positive acronym. And we started very small with our performances at the King. Our first performances at the King Kennedy Center, where the kids' hands were touching the ceiling, when they'd raise their hands. We had a little 28-member cast. We had coffee can lights with and paper plates around the microphone and a little combo. And the performances were from the very beginning, the icing on the cake. It was the process that was most important. And I only had 3 schools at that time involved. And then fast forward to many, many years later, and it had become a nationally recognized program through Marriott. We had gotten an award, and people, Mr. Peterson, from his traveling different schools, would contact me and want to start something similar or whatever the case may be. And so it grew, and it grew to serve, sometimes we would have 50 or almost 60 schools from throughout Stanislaus County represented in the cast. And our casts were always very large. And that's for the summer part of the program. And during the summer, I thought it was very important for them to acquire the skills needed in the performing arts, and their skills that transfer to your day-to-day life. They learned about team building, about communicating. Their self-esteem was built, how to leadership, all kinds of things. Everything you learn in the arts, most of the arts, the discipline, responsibility, it transfers into real life. And they're tools that you can use. I really didn't encourage them to pursue a career in the performing arts, because it's a really rough business. It's tough. It's tough. You can, it's one of the last places where you can stereotype and pigeonhole people. And, you could be the most talented. I had an acting teacher once that said to me that probably the best performance of Hamlet was done in Podunk, Iowa, or some little town. Because there's so much that goes into it besides just being talented. You could be talented and still never work. It's a matter of timing and being prepared and willing to take the risks, all of those things, in order to make it as a career. And unfortunately, it's such a small percentage of people that actually make a living at it, and that's those percentages come from people who are in the unions, and not all the people that are waiting tables and trying to get into the union in order to audition for union shows. It's a real difficult process. But if you do it, that's fantastic. And some of the students have, done it where, I was able to see one of my students perform in Wicked, the national tour of Wicked. And what was so lovely about that was he, got me the tickets, and I went to the theater, and he said, I'll meet you afterwards. And he brought me flowers, thanking me for, introducing him to musical theater and everything. So there's so many wonderful stories of the young people who have pursued other careers, but the Yes Company experience had a lot to do with how they held themselves and how they trained and all of those things, the responsibility of everything. And what was exciting about Yes Company, in the beginning, of course, I was a contract person and, worked 3 months and then worked the rest of the year pursuing building it, working other jobs. I worked for the Center for Human Services with their improv group, Spontaneous Combustion. Then when I got hired at County Office of Ed, eventually after 5 years, Mr. Peterson wanted me to be able to, have an actual job with insurance benefits and, something unknown in the performing arts, retirement, insurance benefits. Are you kidding? So in the beginning, I didn't do Yes Company year round. I worked with their special education department, their alternative education department, just all different areas, and Head Start program, and incorporating the arts and the performing arts in with those students and experiencing it in some way or the other. And that was a very valuable, wonderful experience to have, and to see young people who weren't particularly pursuing a theatrical career experience it. And that was lovely. And then Yes Company grew, and I was able to we were able to get funding and for it to grow to eventually it had several strands. It had Yes Cadets, which were kids grades 1 through 5, and then Yes Kids, which were grades 4 through 8, and they would do a full production, Broadway musical production. One of the licensing houses had put together special. They're called Broadway Junior and Broadway Kids, and they put together these reduced musicals in which you get the soundtrack, you get a full orchestra, all kinds of things. So the younger ones ended up, by the time I left, they were doing full costume productions. We ended with I think Peter Pan was the last. Peter Pan Jr. was the last little ones that we did. And then what was wonderful is having Yes mentors from the summer program, and they would help with the younger kids. And several of them had been the younger kids. It was a great feeding source into the summer program. And then we had Yes ambassadors that performed for all kinds of things. They would speak at conferences throughout the state, but they also would perform for the holiday season or, fundraisers. Yes Company was very much a part of the beginning, the Gallo Center for the Arts. They, performed at the groundbreaking. They walked precincts. So it wasn't just about theater. It was about, living life and how you can support and be a part of your community and use your talents to give back to the community. So, yeah. And then I had Yes Grads, and they did for a while fundraising productions, and then they would come back and be on the staff. So it was just a wonderful gift to the community. But the real gift were all those children I got to work with and experience. It's just an incredible thing.
It's a great story and a great lesson. I was thinking, that some of the other pictures that we have here that we haven't looked at are, stage pictures of some of your background and things that, where you've produced. I mean, you've starred in and played in, and it's really interesting.
Do I see some?
Well, just a couple, sure.
Yeah.
But the difference here between what most people think of as showbiz or being on Broadway or something, where the focus is on the production, but what captured you is the things that go into it. It's not the production, it's the learning, it's the rehearsal, it's all the things that you talk about that people need to learn in order to do a production. That's the important thing for you, and that's what you brought to Yes Company.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't that you brought, look at look at me, look at how I'm starring in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, one of our goals though as well was to give kids the most professional experience possible, because I had worked professionally, even starting with the auditions. They had to come in and fill out an application. They got their picture taken. They went through a process of auditioning, musically, movement, all of those kinds of things. And we had the process of callbacks. Parents were allowed to sit in the back, because it was not about the parents. It's about, when I first started, the Yes Cadets, I wasn't aware. And someone shared with me, some of the little ones were auditioning, and kids are amazing. If you let them, I mean, by the time we ended with Yes Kids, grades 1 through 5, they were changing their own sets. They were, entering there was no adult on stage with them, and they just, it might have been chaos backstage, but when they were on stage, they were very focused and knew what they were doing. But there was once a couple times, I guess, a parent in the back. Do you remember that show, Toddlers and Tiaras? It was about kids in pageants, and moms would be in the background.
Oh yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Well, I would have to say to the parents, like for Yes Cadets in the beginning, now, it's their job to do the audition. You can't stand back there and do it with them, So it was just fascinating. And how I would hold the audition too, just to see if the kids would talk. I would interview them too. I would ask them their name and, ask them a hobby or something. And I wish now that I had kept a journal, because sometimes with the itty bitty ones, the parents would help fill it out. And I had, hobbies. And I said, well, I see here that you really like to do such and such. And then they'd go, no. So anyway, it was always, it was just, as you can see, I adored the kids, and I adored being able to be creative with them. I never had any biological children. And so it would, and so the experiences that I have with children on the most part is they wanted to be where I was to do what we were doing. So I really got a nice positive thing out of that. In the beginning, kids come from all different kinds of backgrounds, and so they had to learn to work together and be positive and all of that. So
well, let's take a look at some of these pictures. I know you've been avoiding talking about yourself, but some of these are great pictures. I think we should share them.
This was the Grand and Glorious Fourth, which Mr. Tischer, and I can't remember the musical director, but they wrote it. It was in the days of Modesto Youth Theater, and it was 1976, and we were celebrating the bicentennial. And this particular number was the San Francisco number. I think it opened Act 2, and I was flown in from the rafters, as you can see there. And then the end of the number was an earthquake. So I had to make myself swing side to side. And heights are really an issue for me. And I wasn't very in the beginning, it was very scary. And plus, I wasn't strapped in or anything. I had yards of fabric and a mountain climbing rope, and I was up there with the other flats, and then when I flew in the first rehearsal, I couldn't look down, and I was saying how calm, okay, you're calm. And then when I went to sing the song, my voice was very, very San Fran. It was very shaky. But by the end of the run, I was able to look down and point out who was making errors with the choreography and, work on that. So that was fun. And then, this is a prime example of Mr. Tischer, who's, of course, Modesto Youth Theater, Modesto Performing Arts. And my goodness, you have to give him his due, for how many years he has kept that production company going. But anybody who knows him remembers him in little short jeans. When we were young, it was different than it is now. I mean, like he would say jump and we'd ask how high. It wasn't the same experience that Yes Company was for young people.
Right.
It was more, focused on the performance, and he was the director. Where with Yes Company, we wanted to provide a safe and nurturing environment in order for kids to blossom and grow. And we blossomed and grew
Yeah.
as well. It wasn't like it was this horrendous thing. It was just different. And
Rough and
so,
tumble theater.
yes. So there was only one kid, he was a kid, or maybe early 20s, that I trusted to pull me up and down. And just before, in a performance, the batten, which held it, broke. And there's Mr. Tisher at intermission. He shimmying up this ladder. He has no fear, in his little shorts, and he's wrapping this batten and moving the swing so that we can go on with the show. And unbeknownst to me, it got fixed, and I went up and I came down, sang and all that. Well, they didn't have time to counterbalance it because they had a counterbalance system. And God bless the kid that took me up and down. He literally had his arms and legs wrapped around, the steel part of the
ropes.
Yeah, the ropes to keep me up in the air. God bless him. So, one of those fun theater stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great experiences. Oh, hey.
And then we did a review. Terry James, who grew up in Modesto Youth Theater and he was a professional performer. He did Broadway tours, and he ended up in Chicago running a professional company at the Marriott, a very renowned one. And that's him right in the corner singing to me. And we did a fundraiser, so we did a lot of different musical numbers. That was a Hello Dolly number, and we did that fundraising for Modesto Youth Theater. And that's when I was anti-MAME. I was only 19 years old, but it was a great experience. And those were in the days, and this was Modesto Youth Theater and Mr. Tisher. Those were the days when Modesto High was not air conditioned. And I had 16 or 17 costume changes and 10 wigs. And it would be so hot, my perspiration would glaze over my eyes. When the spot would hit me, I would just see, this fuzzy thing. Because as you can see, a lot of the costumes were winterish. And but it was a wonderful experience too. Yeah.
I see a big crowd picture there.
Yes. Now this was, and David, you were here. I think this was the company photo we took for the 25-year anniversary of Modesto Performing Arts. Modesto Youth Theater turned into Modesto Performing Arts. And myself and Candy Chamberlain, Robert Ulrich, Margaret Rose, Annie Fraley, and so many other people got together, and they created this anniversary show, which people from all over the world came who had participated in Modesto Youth Theater, Modesto Performing Arts. And I choreographed like the opening number and the closing number. And then we had a little core group of young kids that went through performing, and people recreated their songs. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful celebration.
I think I'm in the picture off to the one side.
I'm sorry.
No,
and there I am with one of my dearest friends, Robert. He's my brother from another mother. We've known each other since we were 4 years old. And we grew up together. We did backyard plays together. He wrote the plays and we performed them. My most renowned one was Cleopatra.
Tell us about him.
And Robert, there's my Robert. he and I were just close friends all the way through high school, college. We even got to be senior best all around. That was a nice compliment in high school. And Robert, he pursued a theatrical career for a short time. He married Kim Johnston, who he was living in New York when they got married, and she got discovered, and she has done, film and television and soap operas, and been very successful. And Robert is a very successful casting agent. His business, I believe, is called Ulrich Dawson Kritzer. And in fact, a couple of years ago, he received this huge the casting, I don't know, it's this big recognition. I can't, he'll hopefully you'll be able to talk to him and he can tell you about it. And he even has won an Emmy, which is very exciting, for Glee. And he's still working, very, very busy guy. But he grew up like me. He's very kind. One of my favorite stories when I was pursuing a theatrical career, and some of the people I worked with when I was a little bit older, when Robert was casting, they would say what a nice person he was. Somebody could come in and within 5 minutes he would know their life story. And that's not the norm. The norm is hello, read, goodbye, but he really cared about people and learning about them. And he always had a really good eye. Sometimes when I'd get pictures taken, I'd have Robert with me because he had a good eye. He could really, that's why he's such a successful casting director.
I see.
And
a
he's getting into
picture-
producing. He's producing now too. So that's something he's always wanted to do.
We will have to call him and get him on this show. He's a Modesto boy.
Yes.
He
Yes.
qualifies.
His daddy, he, for old timers, us old timers, Ulrich Shopping Center, which is now Roseburg Square.
Oh, yes. Okay. The picture above it, is that you and your mom?
Yes, that's me, my mommy and I. Yes. Just a few years before she left this earth, God bless her. She lived with me the last 20 years of her life. And, it's so important with family. You don't, I have a chosen family, and then you have your birth family too. And I think it's so important to get to a point where you really appreciate your family, your birth family. And, one thing that I noticed with myself and throughout the years of working with kids, there comes a time when parents and children kind of have a friction, and I think it's because the kids realize that the parents are human, and that your human parent makes mistakes. They aren't that thing you had on a pedestal. So I'm just so grateful that with my mom, we were at a point in our life that, there's things I should have done, there's things she should have done, but we just loved each other at the end, and, just had this wonderful relationship. And particularly since losing my dad, at 14 years old, that you're not even a person yet. So.
Well, we're coming about to the end of the hour here.
Oh my goodness, I've just talked.
Oh, it's been fascinating though. Gosh, wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, the stories are wonderful. And you're exactly what this show is about.
Mhm.
Yes.
Talking about your life and your art and the importance of art.
Exactly. I think I started performing, but then getting to share it and teach it and share your stories. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know enough, because, it is a craft, but I started at such an early age. I don't think too much about it. I research, your roles and research what you're doing and all of that, but actual letting it go, all the years that I watched choreographers and directors. When I was a little girl at 8 or 9, I watched, sat in rehearsals at Music Circus for hours, and just watch them work. And that's the best way to learn, is to participate and work with people and
Right.
Yeah.
be creative.
And you talk about the craft as where that fits in. Actually, you are the craft. Being around you, I can say for the time I've worked with you that being around someone like you, it's the knowledge you get is incredible.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. It's
Thank
not an academic knowledge. It's just, hey, this person knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
you-
just shows that's who
Oh.
you are.
Oh,
You
thank
share
you
your
so much.
passion. It's like
And yes, and I
others
do
catch
miss
fire.
I miss working with kids, and COVID got us all. I gotta figure out something else to do. I
Yeah.
retired, but I still gotta figure out. There's more to do, isn't there, David and Linda?
Yes, there is.
Mhm.
As we're starting up the Arts Council,
Which is so exciting.
there has to be a place for you in there somewhere
Good.
to
Find a
help
place.
out. I mean,
I hope you start the STARS program. I did that when I came back from New York City.
I remember that.
Yeah, with the
Right.
artists. Yeah, that
Right.
was lovely.
So anyway, our time is up, and gee, we will be in touch.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. And
Oh.
thank you.
so
Thank you
much.
so
Well,
much.
I'm honored that you took the time to listen to my stories.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Right.
you. Thank you. And we got to keep the arts going,
Mhm.
and we've got to work on
Absolutely.
keeping it in schools.
Yes.
That's it's important. It's important.
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
to everyone else, goodbye for now. We'll be taking, oh no, we will be on next week. It's the week after, the 4th, that we're going to be taking a week off. So thank you again, and see you all after the show.